Most people who move to Northern Virginia think they already have a pretty good sense of what it's going to be like here. They've visited Washington, D.C., they've heard that the schools are good, they know the housing market can be competitive. But after helping people relocate to this region for more than 20 years now, I've noticed something interesting. Almost every relocation client eventually says the same thing to me. There were a few things about Northern Virginia that we did not expect. Some of those surprises are really, really positive. A few just take a little getting used to. So, in this video, I want to walk through 10 things that tend to surprise people after they move to Northern Virginia. And if you're considering living here, understanding these things can make choosing the right neighborhood a lot easier. My name is Brian Block. I'm a real estate broker with RE/MAX Allegiance based here in Alexandria, Virginia. I've been helping people buy and sell homes in Northern Virginia for a little over 20 years now, and I currently serve as the managing broker of our Alexandria office. Before getting into real estate, I actually practiced law for a few years. I sometimes joke that it probably explains why I tend to analyze neighborhoods and housing markets a little more carefully than most people do. A large percentage of the buyers that I work with are relocating here from other parts of the country: California, Texas, Florida, New York. So these are conversations that I end up having fairly often. One of the first surprises that people experience when they move here to Northern Virginia is simply how large the area really is. People from outside of Northern Virginia tend to hear names like Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, or McLean and imagine that there's just a few nearby suburbs of Washington, D.C. But Northern Virginia is actually a huge region with dozens of communities that all feel very different from each other. Living in Old Town Alexandria, for example, feels completely different from living in McLean. Arlington has a much more urban, walkable feel. Places like Vienna or Burke feel more suburban and family-oriented. One of the most important things I do with my relocation buyers is help them understand those lifestyle differences, because choosing the right neighborhood here is really about how you want your daily life to feel. Another thing people don't always realize until they get here is how much the metro system actually influences real estate demand. Even buyers who don't plan to ride metro every day often want to have that option. Over the past 20 years or so, I've watched certain neighborhoods become incredibly desirable, largely because of metro access. For example, the Rosslyn-Ballston corridor in Arlington is a great example of this. Walkable neighborhoods connected to Washington by metro tend to have very strong housing demand. It's one of those underlying forces in the real estate market that people sometimes overlook at first glance. One thing I really enjoy about Northern Virginia is that the neighborhoods each have their own personality. This isn't a place where every suburb feels interchangeable. Del Rey in Alexandria has a small town, Main Street feel. Old Town Alexandria is historic and charming with the waterfront and restaurants. Clarendon and Ballston in Arlington feel energetic and urban. And meanwhile, McLean and Great Falls offer larger homes and more privacy. Buyers who really take the time to understand the character of each of these neighborhoods usually end up much happier with where they eventually land. A lot of people assume the best restaurants in the region will all be in downtown Washington, D.C. But Northern Virginia has developed an excellent dining scene of its own. Old Town Alexandria alone has dozens and dozens of great restaurants within walking distance of the waterfront. Arlington has an amazing variety of international cuisine. And Fairfax County has some of the best Korean and Vietnamese food that you will find anywhere in the United States. My wife, Deborah, and I enjoy exploring restaurants around the area. It's one of the things we really appreciate about living here in Northern Virginia. When people picture Northern Virginia, they often imagine politics and government offices connected to D.C. But one of the pleasant surprises for many residents is how much outdoor activity there is here. The Mount Vernon Trail runs along the Potomac River with beautiful views of Washington, D.C. The W&OD Trail stretches more than 40 miles across Northern Virginia. I've ridden my bicycle most of the way. And Great Falls National Park is just a short drive away, but feels like a completely different environment. If you enjoy running, biking, hiking, or just being outside, there's lots of options here in Northern Virginia. For families relocating here, one of the biggest drivers of housing demand is the school system. Northern Virginia has many excellent public schools, and certain school pyramids tend to attract a lot of buyer interest. Over the years, I've seen homes in specific school districts generate very strong demand. Even buyers without children sometimes pay attention to school districts because strong schools tend to support long-term property values. One of the reasons that Northern Virginia has remained such a resilient housing market is the strength and diversity of the economy in the region. Yes, the federal government is still a major employer here, but there's also a huge private sector presence. Technology companies, defense contractors, consulting firms, and startups all operate throughout the Northern Virginia region. Tysons Corner, for example, has evolved into a major business hub over the past couple of decades. That mix of industries helps create economic stability. Another thing that surprises many buyers is how many different types of homes exist here in Northern Virginia. Within a relatively small geographic area, you'll find historic homes in Old Town Alexandria, mid-century neighborhoods like Holland Hills, modern condos in Arlington, and estate homes in places like McLean or Great Falls. Because Northern Virginia developed over many decades, the architecture is incredibly varied. If you're trying to figure out which of these areas might fit your lifestyle, that's something I spend a lot of time helping buyers think through. One thing that stands out to many newcomers is the character of the people who live here. Northern Virginia attracts people from all over the country and from all around the world. You'll meet diplomats, engineers, entrepreneurs, military officers, policy experts, and business leaders. It's a region filled with ambitious and interesting people. Personally, I find that environment pretty energizing. One final surprise I hear fairly often from relocation buyers is this: they didn't expect to stay here as long as they did. Many people move to Northern Virginia for a job opportunity or a temporary assignment. But the combination of career opportunities, strong schools, cultural attractions, and the proximity to Washington, D.C. often leads people to stay much longer than planned. What started out as a short-term move often turns into a long-term home. Northern Virginia is a fascinating place to live. It's economically dynamic, intellectually interesting, and full of communities that each have their own personality. After more than 20 years helping buyers navigate this market, I still find it an endlessly interesting place to live and to work. And if you're thinking about moving to Northern Virginia and trying to figure out which neighborhood might fit your lifestyle best, I'm always happy to talk through that with people. My contact information is in the description below, and you can also call or text me directly. I'm always happy to connect. Even if you're early in the process and just trying to get your bearings, I'm happy to be a resource. And if this video was helpful, there are several others on this channel where I dive deeper into specific communities throughout Northern Virginia.